Hey folks, it's time for FrugalPrepper. So this is my Buick Lucerne. It's got a typical GM 3.8 problem. It starts missing when I'm right open throttle. I let off the throttle and she idles and runs fine. But when you stick her down, open her up, she starts missing. This is a typical problem on GM 3.8s. People replace plugs and wires and all kinds of stuff. There she's missing again. Now she's not. What that is a bad coil pack. You have a coil pack that is going to be drawing more current than the other coil packs, number one. And it's putting out a weak spark. And it's not, and so what happens when you kick that throttle blade open and it takes a big gulp of air, the resistance for that spark to jump the gap goes a lot higher and it requires more voltage. I'll slow down here and we'll hit it again going up this hill. See if you guys can hear it. I heard a little bit of a backfire through the intake there too. That's pretty common. So I'll show you how you test this and how you figure out which coil pack it is. But these are coil packs that came from the junkyard originally. I bought this car used for $400 with bad coil packs, and I replaced them with some from the junkyard. I keep some extra ones in the trunk. And we're gonna go troubleshoot this real quick. But yeah, this happens on GM 3.8s all the time. It's not your plugs, it's not your wires. I know it's not on this because I've replaced them. But this is a coil pack problem, and you will occasionally hear a little backfire through the intake. Now that can be a bad injector as well, but the fact that the injector runs fine at idle, but as soon as you kick it down, it acts up. Not quite as misfiery there, but I felt it just a little bit. And it'll happen more when the engine's cold than when it gets warmed up too, usually. There's a misfire. Yep. So I'm not even going to use the scan tool to try to check for the check engine codes. I know the check engine light's on because I have a bad catalytic converter. So I'm just going to test this and see which coil's the weakest, and we'll replace that one. So I'll be back when I get home here. I'm on my lunch hour, so we'll have to make this quick. Alright, so what we have here is our coil packs. I'm not going to touch those right now. This one, I don't know which one it is, but these coil packs actually, this works on a waste spark system. So this is 6 and 3, cylinder 6 and 3. They fire. It fires on the exhaust stroke and the compression stroke. It'll fire those both at the same time. So the exhaust stroke's what's called a waste spark. It doesn't need a spark, but it only uses one coil pack. So it wastes that spark. So what we have to do is pull one of these off and check the spark on it. We're going to do that with this test light. Let me see if I can find a tripod here and set it up so I can use both hands. Okay. So what we're going to do here is, I'm recording, okay. What we're going to do is just pull this off. We're going to hold our test light here, because this will short the ground. You're going to check your test light, make sure you have a good ground. We're going to pull this off. That's a pretty weak spark on that sucker. Put it back on. Now we're going to check this one. That's a really weak spark. I can't get more than like a quarter of an inch away from it. Now we're going to check this one. That one has a nice hot spark. And we'll check this again. I honestly could use one too. I mean, it's not too strong. Woo! Got shocked. It can happen. Alright. So I'm going to definitely replace this one right here, which is really weak. That one has a real weak spark. This one's sort of weak. I'm going to replace this one and we're going to try it. So these always, the factory coil packs always have the numbers written on them. They're not correct. You know, they don't have to. They don't have to go in that spot. You can still replace them. So this one really is a 4 and 1, which is down there, but it's going to go here on 2 and 5. And so what we need to do is now just take these 2 wires off. And by the way, you can reverse these wires because it's a wave spark system. It doesn't hurt if they're reversed on the same coil. But now we're just going to get our 5.5 millimeter and take that out. That one off. Put this one on. This is another one from the junkyard. This is not a new one. You want to get these things at the junkyard because they're cheaper. AutoZone wants a small fortune for these things, and theirs are crappy anyway. Put those back up. And now I'll go ahead and start it up and we'll do another test on it and see if that's throwing a longer spark. Now she's throwing a nice long hot spark. We'll check this one again. Yeah, that one's probably okay. That one's just a little weak, but it's throwing a long enough spark. And so now we'll take it for a test drive when I get done for lunch and we'll see what happens. All right, so that's a pretty common problem on these. When you go wide open throttle, you suck in the air and the compression comes up. All of a sudden that spark cannot jump the gap for the plug anymore. It doesn't have enough voltage to overcome that increased resistance from the compression that's happening in the cylinder. And if you let that go, eventually that coil pack's probably going to short out. It's probably going to blow the ignition control module, especially if you have an aftermarket ignition control module, because they short out and overload and blow up, where the GM ones have a circuit in them to protect them and shut them down. So buying the ignition components from AutoZone on these, not a great idea. That's just cheap Chinese junk that they sell at an inflated price. If you're going to buy a cheap Chinese junk replacement part, get it on Amazon for a fraction of the price, or just go to a junkyard and find a good one and yank those parts off and keep some extras on hand. I keep an extra ignition control module in the trunk for this guy too. This is my driving car when I have to go on long road trips. This is what I like to take. So I keep extra coil packs, ignition control module in a bag in the trunk. And I keep some in the garage too. So I'll grab another coil pack and throw in there. I keep 3 coil packs and an ignition control module. Just all the time, because if I'm in a hurry and I don't want to troubleshoot it right then, I will just change the whole thing out real quick. It's quick and easy. All right, I'll be back when we test drive this after lunch. All right, so here we go, wide open throttle. All right, should work good. Sweet. No misfires at all. Running at full power again. All right. So that's how you, here's these railroad tracks. I just go over them at full speed. They're fine. But that's how you can diagnose that. Just make sure your test light has a good ground so you don't shock yourself, and make sure you hold the test light closer than your fingers so you don't shock yourself like I did. But if you shock yourself, it just hurts a little. It's not that bad. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. It's Tom, your Frugal Prepper.